Good morning and welcome to our live coverage of Starlink Group 10-6 mission launching from Space Coast, that is Launch Complex 39A Kennedy Space Center from Florida. Hope you all are doing fine and excited about the upcoming launch. Hello, my name is Dipta Maitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch. We are thrilled bringing you the live coverage of SpaceX 76th overall launch and the 73rd Falcon 9 launch of this year. We are waiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Complex 39A, Eastern Florida, for a northeasterly launch for SpaceX Starlink mission. The Starlink mission 10-6 will launch 23 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. Today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's amazing 368th overall launch. This will be the 53rd dedicated Starlink mission of the year for SpaceX. And prior to today's launch, SpaceX has launched 1,155 Starlink satellites so far, over 52 flights this year, and overall 6,805 Starlink satellites to date. After being grounded for 15 days by the FAA due to the first failure in more than 7 years of a rocket relied upon by the global space industry, we are here again to witness the fourth launch of SpaceX workhorse, the Falcon 9, since its last mission failure, that is Starlink 9-3. Now, before getting into the mission details, just some quick updates. NASA and SpaceX stated SpaceX Crew 9 is targeted to launch on August 18th with a window extending to the early September. There are some outstanding certification works that need to be completed before SpaceX can launch a crewed mission, following the Falcon 9's Starlink 9-3 mission anomaly back on July 11th. Regarding Polaris Dawn mission, Sarah Walker, the director of Dragon Mission Management for SpaceX, stated that they are still holding a late summer slot for launch with no specific date specified. Also from the Crew 9 news conference, we got to know that Crew 10 will fly in February 2025 and Starliner 1 in August 2025, double booked with Crew 11. Secondly, teams from NASA and Boeing Space says no date set for Boeing's Starliner crew to return home from the International Space Station. A landing date for Starliner crew flight test will be scheduled following the flight test readiness review planned for later next week. While landing opportunities are available throughout August, meanwhile, the Starliner crew and the ground teams completed a test of the spacecraft's reaction control system thrusters on July 27th. The jets were fired for short bursts and one at a time to provide data for analysis of the systems. Preliminary results from the July 27 Starliner test shows all the test thrusters are back to pre-flight levels based on thrust and chamber pressure, which is a promising sign. Teams will now evaluate the results of the test firings over the next few days as they work through overall studies ahead of an agency readiness review. And lastly, the much anticipated US ISS spacewalk 90 and 91 still there is no further schedule provided by NASA yet. We are keeping a keen eye on any updates regarding all these events and will let you know as soon as possible. Also, you can follow us on X regarding the updates and upcoming launches. Now, just a note, it's me only managing the launch coverages on my own, so if we face any technical hiccups, please bear with me and hang tight. I will do my best to guide you through the Falcon 9 rocket launch happening in less than 1 hour from now. Now, before getting into the mission details, would like to welcome Pop Tripika and Confession at 3 a.m. both our channel moderators and our closest friends. Welcome Pop Tripika, thanks for tuning in, and also welcome Confession at 3 a.m. for joining us, although it's early at your place, Confession, but still thanks for joining us. Hope you guys will enjoy the stream. Previously we couldn't stream some of the events, as you guys know, and we do apologize for that. Hopefully we will continue cover the upcoming launches, and we are always thankful for your constant and perpetual support. Now let's get back to today's Starlink 10- mission details. So far, SpaceX reports that the weather is looking good for today's Falcon 9 launch opportunity, and the range is ready to support. Having only 5% probability of violation and 95% favorable outlook, with the minor primary concern being the cumulus cloud rule only. For now, the forecast suggests there is a small chance for storms to develop over the water near the coastline, especially on Saturday morning. We hope this won't affect the liftoff schedule and SpaceX will be able to launch on time. But if we do not have a launch today, we do have a backup opportunity on Saturday, August 3rd, with launch window opening at 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time. SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of the Falcon 9 from Kennedy Space Center at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:01 a.m. UTC, both on Friday, that is 2nd August, which will be 10:01 p.m. Pacific Time on Thursday, that is on 1st August. Before moving on, firstly, we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for joining us for today's launch. We are truly delighted and appreciative of your presence here. A big shout out to our awesome and incredible YouTube community for tuning in, as we offer dedicated and detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive statistics and thorough insights. Your support means the world to us. Thanks a million to all of you. Now let's take a look at today's payload details for Starlink Group 10-6 mission. This launch marks the 53rd dedicated Starlink launch for this year. Some quick fun facts. The first launch of 21 Starlink version 2 mini satellites known as Starlink Group 6-1 took place from Space Launch Complex 40, Cape Canaveral, Florida on February 27th, 2023. Another fun fact, the two identical Starlink test satellites called Microsat 2A and Microsat 2B were launched on 22 February 2018, which upon orbital deployment were renamed to Tintin A and Tintin B. So Tintin A and Tintin B are the first Starlink satellites to be launched. Now, Starlink satellites are built at SpaceX Satellite Development Facility in Redmond, Washington. Today's launch consists of 23 version 2 mini satellites. The version 2 variant of Starlink is too large to fit inside a Falcon 9 fairing and is meant to be launched by Starship. To mitigate this issue, SpaceX modified the original version 2 blueprint into a smaller, more compact one named version 2 mini. SpaceX also indicated they would build satellites of the second generation constellation in two different but technically identical form factors, one with the physical structures tailored to launch on Falcon 9, that is version 2 mini, and the another for the launch on Starships, that is the version 2. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with powerful 5 advanced Ku band phased array antennas and 3 dual band parabolic antennas utilizing Ka and E band to provide increased capacity. Together, these antennas utilizes Ku, Ka and E band frequencies, allowing Starlink to provide high bandwidth capacity, that is the 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier versions. Each satellite features a dual solar array with a size of 52.5 square meters, which unfurls to a wingspan of 100 feet. Also, it has a high capacity battery to provide power to the payloads, and the two solar arrays are also aero neutral, which enable faster on orbit maneuvers. Each Starlink satellite contains 3 space laser transponders, that is optical inter-satellite links or ISLS, for intercommunications operating at up to 200 Gbps, which together across the constellation form a global internet mesh that can connect customers anywhere in the world. This also enables the spacecraft to transmit data without local ground stations, providing truly global coverage. Each Starlink version 2 mini satellite weighs nearly 800 kilograms, that is 1763 pounds. Starlink satellites are equipped with efficient ion Hall effect thrusters powered by argon, which enable Starlink satellites to raise orbit, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. Starlink is the first Krypton-propelled spacecraft ever flown. Later switched to argon Hall effect thrusters for cost effectiveness. Also, upon switching to argon, Starlink is again the first argon-propelled spacecraft ever flown in space. Now, with this switch in propulsion, it raises the question of how much actually the switch affects the cost. Relative to Krypton, the argon required to fuel version 2 satellites will be practically free. To put it into perspective, fueling its next constellation of almost 30,000 version 2 satellites could cost SpaceX less than fueling 4,000 version 1 satellites, which were based on Krypton. And as you can understand from this, that this really makes a huge difference. Also, SpaceX claims that its second generation thrusters using argon has 2.4 times the thrust and 1.5 times the specific impulse of the previously Krypton fueled thrusters. Today's payload will be placed in an orbit with an altitude of 279 kilometers and with an inclination of 53.16 degrees. This orbital placement configuration does not apply to every Starlink satellite. Starlink satellites are placed in different configurations based on their group. Starlink uses custom-built navigation sensors named Star Tracker that surveys the stars to determine each satellite's location, altitude, and orientation for best possible broadband throughput. And as according to one of our moderator, it is the Space Tesla. Each Starlink satellite contains 4 reaction wheels providing agile altitude control for the vehicle. The hot spare configuration ensures high reliability operation and its aluminum flywheel is fully demisable at the end of life. Also worth mentioning, the Starlink satellites are equipped with an autonomous collision avoidance system on board for avoiding collisions with other spacecrafts and space junk autonomously, which utilizes the US Department of Defense debris tracking database. With the recent inclusion of Sierra Leone and Madagascar, let's take a look at the countries where Starlink's low latency, high speed internet is now available. And as of the current status, Starlink is delivering its high speed low latency internet services to more than 100 countries and territories. Before moving on, let's have a look at the chat over here. Yes, Pop Tripika, the weather is good as I already mentioned. We today have only 5% probability of violation, so the skies are clear for now. But I have to calculate my age when the last shuttle flew. I will tell you later on. But I was not such. Maybe I was, but I have to be precise about that. Confession at 3 a.m. Hello once again. You are still sleepy, I guess. Nothing to be sad that people are not joining us. One day they will, and for now, let's we be together. Yes, Pop Tripika, I saw that, and thanks for that for the repost. That time in a hurry, I didn't mention to thank you for the repost. I just said that we are on it. Hopefully, Pop Tripika, in our Hindi, there is a saying that all the good stuffs to your mouth when someone says something good about you. So, have some cakes, ice creams, and whatever you like to eat. Hopefully, our channel will work out. And as I said previously, no matter what, we want some people like you and Confession, then Vlad, Fairmate, we all at least to be together even at that time. So we have to be together, and as I said that it is more important for me than our channel getting bigger and working good. So let's be together, because right now, as to be true, I'm saying I don't hesitate to say the truth. Look, we, as I said you already, that we are not a big channel, but still you guys are investing your time, love, and understanding for us, and really I will be in depth to all of you. So we are like, I'm out of words to express my gratitude. So no matter what, we get big and this channel performs good, we want at least you guys to be with us even at the that time. Now today we won't be discussing about the latency, although just want to mention that Recently, we saw an update from Starlink that they set a new record for the internal median latency of 28 milliseconds, and they are now aiming to reduce the median latency of Starlink internet in the US to under 20 milliseconds. In other live streams, we used to describe the latency, but as maybe we will be not having enough time to discuss whole things, so we are skipping about that today. Now let's take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's Starlink 10-6 mission. Booster with tail number 1078 will be supporting today's mission. It's now 40 days since last used. Today's booster with tail number 1078 has 11 previous flights in its record, including missions like SpaceX Crew 6, O3B mPower B for SES, a major telecommunication operator based in Luxembourg, a classified launch of USSF 124, and 8 Starlink missions. Now awaiting its 12th flight, just some minutes away. The last mission supported by today's booster was Starlink Group 10-2 from Cape on June 23rd this year. Today's booster with tail number 1078 was previously swapped in for the second attempt of the Starlink 10-2 mission after a rare last second scrub during its initial launch attempt on June 14th. And previously with Starlink Group 10-3 launch on June 27th from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX once again achieved a record. For the first time, a Falcon booster with tail number 1062 launched for record-breaking 22nd time. The same booster previously set a record with its 21st flight for SpaceX. Now let's have a look at the bar graph depicting number of Falcon 9 launches each year. Before today's launch, SpaceX completed 72 launches of Falcon 9 so far this year as part of its milestone, with the recent Starlink Group 9-4 mission launch from Vandenberg back on July 28th, the third launch since Starlink 9-3 mission failure. This year's launch count already surpasses the total number of Falcon 9 launches from all the years leading up to 2022, and SpaceX is now targeting the number of launches made in 2023. With the previous Starlink 9-1 mission launch from Vandenberg, they equaled the number of launches from 2022. SpaceX achieved a significant milestone with this year's 50th launch during the previous Starlink 8-7 mission. This is just 2 more than the half of last year's Falcon 9 launches, which totaled 48 number of launches. Following the recent Starlink 9-4 mission launch, they have now conducted 24 more launches than half of last year's total. Now with today's launch of Starlink Group 10-6 mission from Kennedy Space Center, the bar graph now shows 73 Falcon 9 launches so far this year, which is 12 more than the total number of launches in 2022. They have already accomplished more than half the number of launches they did last year, and it's only been 7 months and 2 days into this year. Due to the loss of Starlink 9-3 mission followed by the Falcon 9 being grounded by the FAA due to an ongoing investigation, SpaceX lagged by 15 days, which affected their spectacular launch cadence. But still, at this pace, they are on their track to achieve their ambitious goal of 140 to 148 launches by the end of this year. Now, SpaceX will really push hard to achieve their committed goal, considering the gap of complete 15 days of no launches. SpaceX already launched 3 times within 40 hours, just 2 weeks after Starlink 9-3 mission failure. Also, we recently witnessed the 4th integrated flight test of Starship on June 6th, and right now we are awaiting for the 5th one, tentatively scheduled for early August. But we hope that the issue with Falcon 9 and the license modification for the super heavy boosters catch attempt by the launch tower from the Federal Aviation Administration, that is the FAA, won't affect the schedule. Now please allow us a couple of seconds to check whether the launch is on time or not, and to stay updated, please be tuned in here. We'll be right back in few seconds. So far it seems like SpaceX are sticking with their newly adjusted liftoff time. Now let's go ahead as we progress through the countdown and review the milestones that lie ahead for us on this Kennedy Space Center flight from Launch Complex 39A. At T-minus 38 minutes, countdown begins at this point when SpaceX launch director gives the go for the start of propellant load. If everything looks fine, prop load begins at T-minus 30 minutes mark with the loading of rocket grade kerosene or the RP-1 on board the first and second stages of Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, LOX load, that is the super chilled liquid oxygen, is loaded on board the first stage. And then at T-minus 16 minutes, which will be the next event, when the second stage liquid oxygen load begins. At T-minus 7 minutes, that's when the chill down of 9 Merlin engines gets underway, which involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps, which helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damages during the startup sequence. At about 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. In a T-minus 4 minutes and a half, the strong back retract sequence begins. The process begins with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairing opening up, followed by the transporter erector or strong back reclining about 1.5 degrees from the Falcon 9. Just for a quick knowledge, you might be knowing that the strong back reclining process at Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral differs from that at Vandenberg. Here at Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral, we recline the strong back about 1.5 degrees, whereas at Vandenberg, we recline it 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. The strong back positioned alongside the vehicle, also referred as the transporter erector, fulfills multiple functions. It supplies propellants, provides air conditioning, pressurization gases, and electrical power. Additionally, it transports the Falcon 9 to the launch pad and positions it for the launch. Here is an image on your screen showing how a strong back or the transporter erector transports the rockets. Although on your screen you are watching Falcon 9 Heavy being transported, but the process is same for the Falcon 9 as well. At T-3 minutes mark, the first stage liquid oxygen loading should be complete, followed by the second stage liquid oxygen loading wrapping up at T-2 minutes mark. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. At T-1 minute mark, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. In the final 60 seconds of countdown, the control of flight system, that is the launch sequence, is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. If everything looks good, at T-45 seconds mark, the SpaceX launch director will give the final go for Falcon 9 liftoff. Now at T-3 seconds, the engine ignition sequence start command being issued by onboard engine controller. Finally, at T0, we will have liftoff. If all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, flight computers will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. Currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Kennedy Space Center at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:01 a.m. UTC, both on Friday, that is 2nd August, which corresponds to 10:01 p.m. Pacific Time on Thursday, that is on 1st August. Now let's go ahead and have a look at a trajectory for today's mission. Falcon 9 leaving the pad from Launch Complex 39A from Kennedy Space Center with a batch of 23 Starlink satellites on board for a northeast trajectory heading into low Earth orbit, that is to the 10th shell of second generation Starlink mega constellation, indicated by that green line on your screen. The red line indicates where the Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later leaving Florida's Space Coast. This is going to be a drone ship landing using autonomous spaceport drone ship. Today's mission is supported by A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship, one of the two here on the East Coast, which means that the first stage booster with tail number 1078 flying for its 12th time will be returning heading out to the drone ship for its landing. This will be the 78th successful landing on A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship to date. Planned booster recovery is 618 kilometers with estimated fairing recovery approximately 700 kilometers downrange. And the second stage, debris re-entry, will be south of Australia on the second orbit. Currently, there are 3 in SpaceX drone ship fleet. One of the 3 drone ships, just read the instructions, and A Shortfall of Gravitas are stationed here in Florida, while of course I Still Love You is stationed in California. We anticipate the addition of a 4th drone ship likely by the end of this year or early next year. Recently, with the Falcon 9's return to flight on Starlink 10-9 mission launch, a new member joined the SpaceX recovery vessel fleet on its inaugural mission, completing fairing recovery sea trials, that is the Go Cosmos recovery vessel. Now, speaking of fairing recovery, SpaceX will utilize a recovery vessel to retrieve them from Atlantic waters. The two halves of the payload fairings will be recovered slightly farther, approximately 82 kilometers downrange from where the first stage lands on the A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship, after they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. SpaceX manufactures the fairing in-house with the total cost of two halves is nearly $6 million. And so that it's no surprise that SpaceX aims to recover the fairings for repetitive use, following its same approach with rocket boosters, upholding the motto of reusability and sustainability. On your screen, you can see how a fairing recovery looks like. Although the recovery vessel on your screen is Doug performing the recovery operations, but today's supporting recovery vessel is the all-new Go Cosmos. It's the second ever mission for Go Cosmos, and the other recovery vessels, Bob and Doug, are currently awaiting its next assignment. Either of them will be used in upcoming commercial resupply services, that is the Cygnus NG-21 mission from Cape. SpaceX has named its two new recovery ships, Bob and Doug, after Bob Bacon and Doug Hurley, two NASA astronauts and the first crew launch by SpaceX for NASA under commercial crew program on the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station back in 2020. Also this year, May 30th marked the 4th anniversary of Falcon 9 launching NASA's Demo 2 mission to the space station, returning human spaceflight to United States. Since then, Dragon has carried 49 people into orbit. Currently, SpaceX Dragon is gearing up for the Cygnus NG-21 commercial resupply services mission for tomorrow, and on August 18th it will launch Crew 9's 4 astronauts. Well, I forgot to show the slide of the all-new Go Cosmos recovery vessel performing the recovery operations for the second time for today's mission. Now, here is a short video of the fairing separation and embark ignition. You can see how the fairing half separates, exposing the payload on board the second stage to space and the embark engine ignition. Yet another clip of a fairing half, that protective shell from the rocket's payload, while making its way back home, piercing through Earth's atmosphere. The coolest part is this mesmerizing halo around it, and of course it's a sight to behold. Now, if you feel like we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bringing in more space fans to discover this stream out. Also consider about subscribing to us and turning on the bell notification as we work hard to bring you detailed streams with stats and insights. And for that, we would be super grateful for your support. Let's have a look through the post-launch timeline for the Falcon 9 rocket passing these events following liftoff on Starlink 10-6 mission. At t plus 1 minute and 10 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through max Q, a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then couple of different events coming up in rapid succession. First will be at t plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds, where first stage main engine cutoff will occur, that is MECO, followed by a major milestone within 4 seconds at t plus 2 minutes and 30 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. As you recently saw in the previous clip we shared with you. Now, just after 7 seconds later, second stage embark engine will ignite for the first time during today's flight, that is SES-1 at t plus 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Coming up next at t plus 2 minutes and 56 seconds mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned, exposing the payload to the vacuum of space. At t plus 6 minutes and 6 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 22 seconds up to 6 minutes and 28 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for Falcon 9's first stage. At this time around, we will hear the call out for stage 1 FTS, that is the flight termination systems, being saved. A quick fun fact, the stage 1 FTS is saved, or you can say flight termination systems are turned off or disabled after the re-entry burn, whereas the stage 2 FTS is saved after the orbital insertion burn. Shortly after that, we will also hear the callouts for stage 1 being transonic and stage 2 being in terminal guidance. Now the next major milestone at t plus 7 minutes and 53 seconds, the first stage landing burn will commence, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. Just couple of seconds prior to the first stage landing, the landing legs will be deployed, and at t plus 8 minutes and 15 seconds, the first stage will land on the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas for the 78th time overall, marking SpaceX 333rd overall booster landing to date. The second stage MVAC engine will shut down, that is SECO-1, for the first time in today's flight and enter into a parking orbit at t plus 8 minutes and 39 seconds. T plus 54 minutes and 59 seconds, the second stage MVAC engine will reignite for a quick 1 second burn, that is SES2, and turning it off at t plus 55 minutes, that is SECO2, which will set up the batch of 23 Starlink's satellite deployment at approximately t plus 1 hour, 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Moving on, let's have a look to some stats related to today's Starlink mission launch. Today's launch marks 368th SpaceX overall launch and the 53rd dedicated launch of Starlink satellites for this year. This will be the 356th Falcon 9 launch to date, 12th flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission with tail number 1078. Today's launch marks 73rd Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far and is SpaceX 76th overall launch of this year, including the third and fourth integrated flight test of Starship and one Falcon Heavy launch. This will be the SpaceX 302nd Falcon booster reflight to date, that is the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. 87th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from pad 39A. And the 181st overall orbital launch from this pad, that is Launch Complex 39A. With this mission success, SpaceX will have a remarkable 6,828 Starlink launch to date. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 288th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 78th landing on A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship so far. 12th landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1078 supporting today's mission. With this mission's first stage landing, which sets the stage to the 262nd overall drone ship landing, marking 314th Falcon 9 landing so far and 333rd SpaceX overall landing to date. Speaking of drone ship landings, let's look into the stats for droneship landings prior to today's mission. It is worth mentioning about among the droneships, A Shortfall of Gravitas has a flawless record with 0 unsuccessful landing attempts and 77 successful landings with the previous Starlink 10-4 mission. In comparison, Just Read the Instructions has encountered 3 unsuccessful landings with 87 successful landings previously with Falcon 9's return to flight on Starlink 10-9 mission, while Of Course I Still Love You has experienced 7 unsuccessful landings and 97 successful landings with the recent Starlink 9-4 mission from Vandenberg. This positions A Shortfall of Gravitas as a top performer in flawless and successful droneship landings. Please note that only these droneship landing stats which I mentioned right now here are excluding today's mission. These stats of the droneship landings are prior to today's mission. Now a request for you guys. Hitting the like button helps YouTube algorithm catch the drift and bring more space lovers and rocket enthusiasts our way, helping us to build a community. And also consider subscribing to us as we strive hard enough to bring launch coverages filled with stats and thorough insights. We would be totally amazed to have you on board, and your support means the world to us. Now let's have a look into some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's Starlink 10-6 mission. So with today's launch, SpaceX will have a total of 76 launches, and out of those 53 were Starlink missions, including one from today. 21 were non-Starlink missions for commercial and government organizations, which includes one Falcon Heavy launch as well and 2 Starship launches. The recent non-Starlink mission supported by Falcon 9 was Turksat 6A, an ROL-186 mission, and previously the GOES U mission supported by the 10th launch of Falcon 9 Heavy. SpaceX reused boosters for 71 times in those mission launches and including today's one, showing their commitment to their sustainability and reusability. Now if we look into the geographical distribution, they have 50 launches from East Coast with 15 from Launch Complex 39A, that is Kennedy Space Center, including today's one, and 35 launches from Space Launch Complex 40, that is from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the west coast, they have 24 launches, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East, that is Vandenberg Space Force Base. And there was 2 launches from Gulf Coast of Starbase back in Texas for the Starship 3rd and 4 integrated flight test. As for landings, they have nailed it 74 times. Most of them were on drone ships with 59 successful landings, 20 on Of Course I Still Love You, 16 on Just Read the Instructions, and 23 on A Shortfall of Gravitas, including one from today. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 15 of them. 9 times on landing zone 1, 2 times on landing zone 2 and 4 times on landing zone 4 respectively. The landing zone 1 will witness an upcoming landing for the Cygnus NG-21 mission. Right now we are just 3 minutes away from the webcast to begin, so just quickly discuss some stats remaining. Prior to today's launch, the success rate for land landings is 98.61%. For droneship landing, it is 96.31%, and the overall landing success rate is 96.79%. The longest stretch of successful mission in a row prior to the last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission, is 334 launches. That is from Iridium 1 to Turksat 6A. Most launches in a calendar quarter to date is 36 launches in the second quarter of this year, that is 2024, and most launches in a calendar month is 13 launches in May, that is also in this year, that is 2024. Moving on to this year's orbital launches, including today's one, United States is dominating with 88 orbital launches, comprising a substantial 64.2% of the global total. China follows closely behind, accounting for 24.1% with 33 launches, with recent launch of Long March 3B E on WHG-02 mission for high orbit internet satellite. Russia maintains a steady pace with 8 launches, making 5.8% of the pie, and we have an upcoming launch of Progress MS-28, another cargo resupply mission on August 15th, which will mark the 181st flight of a Progress. On the other hand, Japan has 4 launches so far, making 2.9% of the pie. Meanwhile, both India and Iran made their participation with 2 launches each, contributing to 1.5% of the global total. Also, it is worth mentioning this year's first successful orbital launch was made by India. And we have an upcoming launch of ISRO's SSLV, that is the Small Satellite Launch Vehicle, Flight 3 mission on August 15th, marking India's 3rd mission of 2024. Now, I guess it's time for the webcast to begin. So, let's move on to the webcast.
Strongback retract has started.
Right now, we are pressurizing the tanks, where we are adding a little bit of gas to stiffen up the tanks so that the clamp arms can open, with a solid structure holding the Falcon 9. Upon opening the arms, we will start reclining the Strongback about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9. at T minus 3 minutes and 44 seconds. All systems are go for an on-time liftoff. Now the strong back retract process is now underway, and the clamp arms around the stage 2 are now coming to open up. While watching the live view of Falcon 9, a couple of important steps were completed. The spacecraft team switched to internal power a few minutes ago, and fueling up of the Falcon 9's first stage is finished. Meanwhile, all the RP-1 prop
Stage
is
1 locks load
on
complete.
board. While we are still loading the liquid oxygen on both the first and second stages. Now we did got the call out for the stage 1 LOX load being complete.
Stage 2 locks load complete.
And here is the call out for the stage 2 LOX load completion. All propellants are now on board the Falcon 9 with 1 million pounds of propellant. We are now beginning to vent down the pressure that was in the tubing on the strong back. That's why we can see those clouds coming out there. Coming up,
Ground gas
we will have the
closeout.
ground gas closeout. That's where we bleed the pressure of that cold gas when it reacts with the moist humid air, which gives you that nice white cloud, an indicator of launch coming up. Next event, T minus 1 minute, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9 flight computers are in startup and controlling the rocket for the remainder of the countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Right on time, Falcon 9 flight computers on stage 1 and stage 2 are running the rocket through last minutes of countdown. Now let's listen to the go callouts.
Go for launch.
SpaceX launch director giving go for the launch. We are coming up at T minus 30 seconds. All systems continue to remain go for the launch of Falcon 9 and Starlink.
About 30 seconds, Ken. T minus 50. T minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
We have successful liftoff.
M1
Falcon 9
chamber
has
pressure is
cleared the
nominal.
tower. Stage 1 engine chamber pressure is nominal. T plus 34 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 on its way with 23 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit.
Power and telemetry nominal. Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Power, telemetry and propulsion all are nominal. We are into the throttle bucket, throttling down the 9 Merlin engines, preparing for the period of maximum dynamic
Q.
stress coming up. and we did got the call out for the max Q. We are through the period of maximum stress on the vehicle. We have throttled the Merlin engines back up to full power.
MVAC engine chill. Miko. Stage separation confirmed. Second stage startup.
We just got the callouts for all back-to-back milestones, that is main engine cutoff, stage separation followed by MVAC ignition. The stage nitrogen thrusters
Fairing
is
separation
now
confirmed.
beginning to reorient the first stage, and the flight computers has commanded the four hypersonic titanium grid fins to slowly begin deploying. We got the call out that the fairing has successfully separated. Right now we are looking a view of the first stage, which continues under the force of gravity and steering with the help of grid fins. It will continue to rise towards the apogee before descending back towards the landing on the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. Second stage, meanwhile, in the middle of its 6-minute burn, is on its way into the parking orbit with the 23 Starlink payload on board. Until now, the launch has been excellent and smooth. The first stage has completed its objective and it's now en route back. The second stage is operating at maximum capacity and we are getting good views from space, that is on the second stage. Currently, we are preparing for the first stage to make its return to the drone ship landing site. Referring to Pop Picker, keep an eye for the icing. During this part of the flight, stage 1 relies solely on its grid fins for steering as it re-enters to Earth. These grid fins reorient the Falcon 9 during re-entry and guide the rocket during its descent. Right now we are viewing the second stage. Although we are not getting views from the first stage, although right now we are getting the view of the first stage from its inside cam, but what I wanted to mention that occasionally on the left side on your screen you will see nitrogen gas bursts from the first stage for altitude control. These are basically used to position the vehicle as it heads back toward the drone ship. Next up, we will be having the stage 1 entry burn startup. We are currently 6 seconds away from that.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there is a confirmation. We have just lit 3 of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. You can see now we are rapidly slowing the vehicle down as it
Stage 1 FTO
re-enters the
saved.
Earth's atmosphere, and this burn should last just around 22 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there we go. That's the confirmation of shutdown
Both
of the entry
vehicles
burn
are
on the
following
first
nominal
stage.
trajectories.
The Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs, and those are made out of carbon fiber with aluminium honeycomb. They are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket, and they will deploy just prior to the landing.
Stage 1 transonic.
We just heard the call out that stage 1 is now traveling slower than the speed of sound as it heads towards landing. Speaking of landing, we are just about 10 seconds away from that.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there we go. Great views of that landing burn with that center E9 engine now lit. We are
Stage
slowing
2
down
is
the
in
vehicle
terminal
very
guidance.
rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds now.
Stage 1 landing leg deployed.
Landing legs are deployed.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you have it. We have successfully made the 314th landing of an orbital class Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up next, we will
Stage
have
2
the
FTO
second stage
saved.
engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event, we will enter into 46 minutes of coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit.
Second stage cutoff.
Sorry if we made, I was busy with this commentary, didn't even got time to see
Nominal
you
park
that
orbit
you joined
insertion.
us. Welcome, and although it's the time for saying goodbye, but anyways, welcome and hope you enjoyed the stream, and we also hope that you are doing well. Fairmate, I didn't understood about the southern launch of Australia, what you meant by that. Yes, Popripika also, I did saw that post of Elon that about mentioning about the 50% chances of the booster about the Falcon Heavy boosters catch. Hopefully they will be able to make it. And that will be really interesting as well. And thanks Fairmate, thanks Popripika, thanks Confession at 3 a.m. and everyone joining us today. But Fairmate, please do tell us about what you wanted to say by mentioning that you can also add Southern Launch Australia. It will be helpful to us. And if you can't hear, please, if possible, you can mention it on X. We are active there. So Today's launch marks the 368th successful overall launch for SpaceX, and the landing marks the 333rd overall successful landing for SpaceX. With that, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out the social media for the confirmation of Starlink deployment. We hope you enjoyed the stream, and we want to thank all of you joining us with today's launch. Yes, yes, Fairmate, that I understood. Yes, of course. Right now, the name is not coming to my mind. It's Australia's first launch. Anyways, we will be covering that. You were mentioning about a previous launch, actually, Fairmate. No. Well, I'm not aware of that really. I'm sorry about that. But we'll look after. But which I was saying that about a future mission, and it's fine. Okay, fine, Fairmate. You go join them. And again, thanks for joining us. So we will now wrap up our coverage for today. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you will enjoy this weekend ahead. This is AstroYonder Live, and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.